Alright, what is going on, everyone? My name is Cameron. Welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a little bit. I've had some issues with getting my recording set up to work and all sorts of other technological issues that come with recording YouTube videos. But I'm back, and I can't wait to start fleshing out more of the project that we've been working on. Just to kind of get started really quick, I want to show you. So let's go ahead and fire up the dev server, and you'll see, boom, we actually have an app that looks like something. So there's actually styles right now. That being said, something that I went ahead and did off screen was I went ahead and styled our login and registration forms, just because I didn't figure you guys would want to see that. If I'm wrong, please let me know down in the comments. I'm happy to do, styling and such, but I don't want to waste your time. That said, I have I'm using, it looks like I'm using something called Tailwind, but I'm not. I'm using a tool called Uno CSS, put out by Anthony Fu, who's a prominent Vue, prominent contributor to the Vue ecosystem, as you can kind of think of it now. But yeah, no, I'm using that. I wanted to try it out. It is it's a lot like Tailwind. It's just made to work with Vue, made to work better with Vue, speed things up. Yeah. So that being said, I'm using that. It's working out pretty well. If you guys want to see how to get that set up in a Vue project, maybe I can make a video in the future. But something I do want to do on screen at some point, you'll notice that like these inputs look very much alike. If we look at the register component, all of our inputs look very much alike. And this is kind of unmaintainable. I don't want to have to do this for like every input, like come and copy and paste, right? That's the beauty of components. We don't have to do that. And so I want to kind of look at making like a base set of like production ready components in the future. It won't be for this video, but I definitely want to look into that. So let's go ahead now. Now that we've kind of taken a look at that, let's go ahead. What I want to do for this video is, if you can tell by the title, I want to go ahead and get our router set up. So right now, we literally can only see our login page. If I go to /login, it's login. If I go to /register, it's register. If I go to /blah, it is blah. Go ahead and get the router working. So what we'll need to do is we will yarn add Vue Router. Now that we've done that, what we'll want to do is inside of our client directory, we want to add a new directory. I'm going to call it router, and then we're just going to put index.ts inside of our router. And in here, what we're going to do is we're going to import create router from Vue Router. I cannot type. We are going to then say const router equals create router, and that's going to take an object with a couple of arguments that we want to pass. In this case, we want to pass history, and we're just going to use the kind of default recommended option for history, which is create web history. And then it's also going to take some routes. Now we need to go ahead and create routes, and this is going to be an array. So let's go ahead and look. Before we do that, let's look at create router. So one of the really awesome things about Vue 3 and actually Vue 2, because they've backported Vue 2 and refactored everything into TypeScript, is that it's all written in TypeScript, so we can see what this is expecting. So you can see this create router is expecting some router options. Router options is, like we saw, it's expecting a history, but it's also expecting some routes. And these routes, it's going to be a record raw, or an array of record raw. So what I want to do here is I want to say here in our file, I want to say const routes equals record raw, route record raw, and it's an array. And whenever I do that, it's going to go ahead and import that from Vue Router because they expose that type. And then I want to go ahead and create our array. So now that's all set, but we need to go ahead and add our routes. So the reason I did this is so that I can get some syntax highlighting, because as you can see, we're getting this error that says empty object is not assignable to route record raw. That is because it needs a path. So in this case, we're going to say /login, and then it needs a component, and we are going to pass login. So let's go ahead and import login from pages login.vue, and that works out awesome. So now let's go ahead and do the same thing, but for register, and then let's add a path for register and component register. There we go. So now we have those two routes. Next, we're just going to go ahead and export our router. I'm going to make that the default export. If you want to do a named export, that's perfectly fine too. But for me, I'm just going to go ahead and do the default, just for preference. Now that we've created this router, we need to use it. So what we'll need to do is we'll need to refactor our main.ts a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and say const app equals create app. And then I'm going to go ahead and say app.mount, so everything works the same. Works the same as what it did before, but now we have a way of hooking into our application without having to do a bunch of chaining. So let's go ahead now and we'll import our router from /router, and you'll notice the reason that I did this index.ts from our router is just so that this looks a little better. Our import looks a little better. So now we are importing our router. I want to go ahead and do app.use and pass our router as a plugin to the application. So now everything should be set. The only thing left, so now that I've done that, if we go back, we'll notice I should fire up the dev server, make sure that that's running. You'll notice we are still, everywhere is still showing login. And that is because the application doesn't know how to actually use the routes. It doesn't know where to render those routes. So what we have to do is we have to come to app.vue, and you'll notice that we're just rendering the login, and that's why we're actually seeing that. What we need to do, I'm going to clean this up a little bit. What we need to do is we need to say router view. So now our routes should be displayed. So you'll see blah displays nothing because there is no route for that. But /login looks great, and so does /register. Those both look really good. So now what we'll want to do is the main purpose of all of this has been to go ahead and get this set up so that we can navigate our user to the home page where we will do all of our to-do tasks, basically, once they sign in or register. So in order for that to happen, we actually need a home page. So let's create that. So here's my home.vue. I'm just going to create kind of a base template component that's going to say hello. So now we have this. We can jump back over to our router. And let's go ahead and add one more path. It's just going to be our base path. And then for the component, we'll just say home. We don't have home, so we need to import it. Let's go ahead and import home from pages/home.vue. There we go. Now past that, there we go. We need to definitely need a comma. So now register is there, and if we go to the home or the base route, there you go. We are showing our home component. All of this being said, now that we have this, I shouldn't be able to really see this page if I'm not authenticated, right? Based on kind of what we want this application to be, the user experience that we're going to have, you shouldn't be able to, or at least for the time being, the idea is you won't be able to create to-dos unless you are authenticated. So I shouldn't have access to this page. So let's go ahead, and in order to do that, we need to create a before each, which is essentially like a middleware that gets run before the actual navigation event. So we'll, in order to do this, we're going to say router.beforeEach, and with this we get a to and a from, which is basically the information on where we're coming from and where we're going. For the sake of what we're doing right now, we don't need from, so we're just going to leave that off. And then what I want to do is I want two different variables here. So I want my const non-authenticated routes, and we'll say one of those is /login, the other is /register, and then the other is const is authenticated, and I am just going to set that equal to local storage dot get item token, because that's what we, if you remember, that's what we set whenever we try to authenticate from the login or registration screen. And then if that is available, I'm gonna make sure that that is not undefined, and I'm gonna say .length. And we will what we'll do now is we will go ahead and check if not is authenticated and not non-authenticated routes dot includes to dot path, then return an object that has a path of /login. So let's break this down a little bit. We have this non-authenticated routes, which is the routes that will basically be outside login, right? Anything that I can access if I don't have a token. And then I have this is authenticated, which is just effectively detecting is there something in local storage with the key token. Then we have this logic here that is saying if I'm not authenticated and the path that I'm going to is not within my, or is not, so basically if I'm not going to login or register, then go ahead and navigate me to the login page, because I'm not authenticated, so I shouldn't be landing on any other page other than login or register. So now let's go ahead and give this a try. So now if I go ahead and I refresh, I need to make sure that I don't actually have a token from earlier. Yeah, I do have that token. So if I delete this, you'll see I now land on login. If I try to go back to the home page, it doesn't let me. If I try to go to register, it lets me go to the register page because that is considered a non-authenticated route. If I try to go to the blah page, same thing. So that's working as expected. So now what we need to do is we need to check and see if this is actually going to work. We need to see if I try to authenticate, do I actually am I actually able to land on the home page? So we'll go ahead and say Cameron Smith, why not, at yt.com. And then we're going to have our password. We're going to sign up. And hard to tell right now, I need to adjust some of the styling, but that did not work. There was an issue, and the issue is our API isn't running. So what I need to do now is run yarn dev db up, which will run my Docker compose and go ahead and start our database. And then go ahead and go run. Oh, I'm not in the API anymore. Go run. And there we go. So now our API is up. I can go ahead and try to sign up. I view the application, and we have a token. So now if I try to go to the home page, I'm able to. And that is because I have that token. But I don't know about you guys, but I definitely do not want to have to type in the route I want to go to after I've registered or signed in. So let's go ahead and jump over to our login, and let's go ahead and jump over to our login page. I'm going to go ahead and clear. So now it takes us back to the login page. What we need to do is, one, remove the on-mounted hook because we are no longer using that, but we need to go ahead and say const router equals use router. It will go ahead and import that for us. And then down here where we are doing our on submit, after we set the token, we need to go ahead and say router.push, and we're just going to push onto the home screen. So let's go ahead and try to log in at yt.com. Type in my password. And it navigates me. So once I get the response back, it works. So that works. I could probably, so now what we need to do is we need to move that same logic over to the register page. I'm gonna clear that. So let's go ahead and jump over to register. We are going to do the same thing. Also removing the on-mounted hook, doing a little bit of cleanup here. And then after our local storage dot set item here, what we'll want to do is we want to do the same thing with router.push. So that'll push us once we submit to the page we want to go to. So now we can go Bob Smith, Bob at yt.com, sure, co. Give him a password and sign up. And it works. That works just as we expected it to. But we still have a couple small issues. So let's go ahead and if I try to go back to login, you'll notice that we are still able to access our login and register screens, and I don't want to have to deal with weird edge cases where the user could still register or sign in, or just have all this happen while they have a token already. It's much simpler to just not have access to these screens while you're signed in. So what we're going to do is we are going to go to our router, and we're going to just add an else if clause here. Else if is authenticated. It's basically the inverse, right? Is authenticated and non-authenticated route dot includes to dot path. Then I just want to return path and the home directory. So now if I try to go to /login, I am authenticated. We can tell because I have a token. It just brings me back to here, right? As soon as I clear that, it's going to take me to log in. So that's pretty awesome. That works just as we would expect. I really like this format. It's very nice and concise. Trying to do these things in React, coming from I use React as my day job. This is so much nicer. I feel typically, at least from my experience, you end up handling these things with like routing components in React, and that just feels very weird. This is very concise and easy to understand. I don't exactly like handling all of that within a component. So really like this. So that being said, I want to point out a couple of things. One, we don't have any sort of validation happening here on the forms. That's something that we'll do in the future. But I did want to point out that if I do like bob@yt.co and I did my password instead of his, right, it's not going to navigate me. If we look at the console, one, I mean, that's another issue, right? We don't have any sort of errors that we're logging, and we should do that in the future. I'll likely do that off screen, just because I'm sure a lot of you don't want to see just see like me creating a error component, and then I'll show you like what the component looks like, and you can see for yourself in the source on GitHub. But you can see that an error is occurring because our password is incorrect. If we look in the terminal, we have a 500, and it is because the hashed password is incorrect. And this is just proving that when that does error out, we don't actually proceed. So it is working as we would expect it to. We just we need to improve the user experience for this. So I think that's going to wrap it up for this video. I hope that you guys enjoyed. I was trying to make this one pretty short and sweet. If you have any comments, suggestions on how these should be improved, leave them down in the comments below. Don't forget to hit the like, dislike, whichever you prefer. It all helps in improving the videos, and I will see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.